The first person I interviewed who was kind of forced to learn about Bitcoin.
Initially, one person in India can earn, and then the whole family was able to survive. Now, two people are working, but still, it's not enough. I don't care even if you buy even a single dollar or rupees, whatever, right? But please study it. Like, put in at least 10 hours, 20 hours. Read this book, The Bitcoin Standard. And the first time in the history, I see if a company is doing well in their stocks, they issue more stocks. If a builder is doing good in his real estate, he will build more buildings. Everybody matches the demand. Your only concern is not to make money. Your main concern is to how to save your money.
It's not like Bitcoin is now coming in this great system. It's the other way around. Big boys' money, they realize they have to join it.
That's so hard because frankly, I get scared just thinking, what if there was no Bitcoin?
Namaste, Aditya.
Yeah, that's like hello, Aditya.
Like I actually have since around a year an Indian girlfriend, so that's why I know a little bit Hindi. Like she speaks Hindi, but not a lot. Like I have to be so much better. And I actually like you are my first Indian guest, and I actually asked her, "Do you have because it's an Indian guest? Do you have a special question for him?" And I would actually like to start with that question from her because it's an interesting one. If you're close to your parents, how did they react when they came to know that you are into Bitcoin?
So my journey to Bitcoin was very different. My journey to Bitcoin was so I'll just give it a little bit background. So yeah, I went to United States 2015 for my master's from India. And then when I was doing my master's, I was just about to graduate. It was my last semester, and one of my professor, he was also from India, but he was teaching there since quite a few years, Dr. Vasant Rawal, and he told me like, hey, you know what, this is your last semester, this class, and you will be graduate, so maybe with the final exam also write a paper on Bitcoin and blockchain. And I had zero idea. It was 2017 of August or something, sorry, May or June, and I had like zero idea, like what is he even talking about, like Bitcoin and blockchain, what is it? I never heard about it before. Okay. And I'm like, I need grades. I need to pass the class. And I was like, okay, I'll write it. And the first thing I went to YouTube. And back then there was hardly any podcast or anything. So I looked at the TEDx talk, and there was one FBI officer talking about how Bitcoin is so useful for them because they can easily track people now. And there was one other, like two, three TEDx talks. And so that's how my journey started. And so that's why when I say my parents that, hey, my professor gave me the paper, he introduced me to something like this, and he has a track record of being very updated in the like world, like what's going on. And they were like, okay. So I mean, they never mentioned like, hey, why are you doing this, or why are you so interested in this. They sometimes get concerned, like if I am the Indian parents, I think they always say, don't get too obsessed with something. Like be humble. Like that's what Bitcoin teaches. Like don't be too much and don't be like too aggressive. Just see both the sides, and that's what I did. For me, I remember when I was writing the paper, I it was some I don't even remember the dollar amount, but $2,000 or something. But I only bought like $10 because again, you were a student. I was about to graduate, no job, right? So I was like, okay, let's put the $10. Let's start, like just to check. That was my first purchase on Coinbase, and I'm like, and and then you know what? Like after the paper was done, I wrote it, and the professor, he didn't like the paper at all, like what I wrote, so he gave me again like, hey, you know what? I'll give you 10 more days, fix a lot of the remarks he gave, because I wrote all kind of stuff like I have no idea. Like I just wrote, oh, it's decentralized. It's like Uber, where there's no one owner. Like I was writing like I even when I read that paper now, I'm like I always laugh on it. Like I'll never show that paper to anyone. so so yeah, I mean, and then I started my job at Deloitte as a financial auditor, as an external financial auditor. And frankly, when you go to a new country, you start a job, it's very hard to get a job. And then you they sponsor the visa for you, and also I was very much dedicated to work, and I'm like, I can't do, like, I forgot about Bitcoin, like literally, and thank God, or else I would have bought the top or something. Like I would have gone crazy, right? So it was a bull market, right, about it, and I forgot about it. And then I think in 2019 is when, I somehow on YouTube there was a podcast or something which popped up, and they were talking about Bitcoin, and I'm like, oh yeah, like why, like let's see what's going on. And that's, that's how I started reading about it. I read the books. I started here, like listening to podcast, thousands of hours. Like again, after Sailor joined, I think 2020, I've been listening to Sailor, what Bitcoin did, like again, so much stuff. And that's how like the entire journey started. And I'm very fortunate that, uh, I started from a research part and not like a buying part. But still, you know what? I ended up going into other cryptos, and I don't know why I did that. It was like, no, let's try Ethereum, let's try Cardano, let's try this, let's try Decentraland. Oh, let's try again. I was so, I don't know why. Maybe it's a part of every Bitcoiner's journey.
Yeah, I think I think it's a learning curve. Like I also was in Decentraland. I already also played in there. I was in Ethereum. I was in a lot of shit coins. I think it's just a part of the learning journey of being a Bitcoiner to get some experience in altcoins also. It's interesting. You were the first person I interviewed who was kind of forced to learn about Bitcoin.
Exactly.
It's an interesting
Like
start.
students jokingly, like, that's the best of my masters. Like that was the best part, that he asked me to write a paper. I'm so happy. Like I even told him later on, like in 2021. So like, thank you for introducing me. He's no more in this world. May his soul rest in peace. But yeah, he was a very nice professor. He was from India. He connected with me, and I don't know why. He just gave me that paper. And if that was not like, I think if he would have not given it, I don't think so. I would have even thought about getting into this. I would have been, just be into stocks or something like that. Like, like something, because I would have never, like, I don't know. I would have not put my money, because I take my personal wealth very seriously, and I would have thought, like, as 99% of world today thinks, it's just a gamble. It's, there's no utility to it, but thanks to him. So, yeah.
Do you know if your professor was like a Bitcoiner or in the crypto scene? But like, why did he propose that topic?
Again, like I don't know if he was a Bitcoiner or not, because if he would have been a Bitcoin, like again, what's the trade of Bitcoiner? Talking nonstop, right, about Bitcoin. We were in the class. I was a student, so I don't think so. I don't know, and I never asked him that time. But I'm pretty sure that if. But again, one thing unique about him was he always was curious what's going on, like what's going on with the technology. And I think it was about the bull market 2017. So, he might have heard in the news or something, and he would have understood that blockchain is a future, and Bitcoin is the future. And but again, he told me to write specifically on Bitcoin and blockchain. Like he didn't even say to me like cryptocurrency, like nothing. Like he just said Bitcoin and blockchain, and that's all. And again, I forgot about it, but thanks to him that I was able to, when I went in and started reading about Bitcoin, went into that rabbit hole. I think thanks to him that I was like so confident, because it was my professor who gave me, because he has a really good track record, and he wouldn't show me something, which is irrelevant or a scam, right? So thanks to him, I never had doubt in my mind that, oh, Bitcoin, might be a scam or something. I never had that. So that's the most, because a lot of the Bitcoiners I hear, they say that they avoided Bitcoin at the first place, and then they thought it's a scam, internet money, and then they joined. But with me, I think it was a research. I wanted a good grade. So
That's really fortunate. Like you can be really thankful for that, professor. I
Yeah.
thought that Bitcoin is a scam for a long time, and
Oh,
I actually wanted to prove a friend of mine who was into Bitcoin, or like even wanted to ask me what is Bitcoin and what do you think about it, and I want to prove him wrong. And I was like, this weekend I will learn everything about Bitcoin, and I will prove you wrong why Bitcoin is a scam. And in that weekend, I discovered Bitcoin and I bought the Monday afterwards. Like I needed to overcome my ego to learn about Bitcoin because I was so convinced that it's a scam. But I think it's easier if you are going with an open mind in there. I was not. Um, I saw your first post with like your pin post. I think it already is on X, where you see where you say that there are no Bitcoin only exchanges in India. Like
yeah.
for me, it's fascinating because Austria has like 8 million people. India has like 1.4 billion, and Austria alone, I know three Bitcoin only exchanges. And like, how is the Bitcoin adoption in India going? Can you talk about like why are there no Bitcoin only exchanges? How is the process of Bitcoin in India right now?
So yeah, as I said, right, like I spent 8 years in the United States. I'm like, I was always there, like even when I was started with Bitcoin. So I had that option to sign up with Coinbase, Robinhood, stuff like that. And in India, a lot of my friends were in India, right? Like, and I was telling them, hey, Bitcoin and all, but they were like, where do I buy it? Because in India, I just want to give you a background that in India, from 2017 to 2019 or 2020, I might be wrong, but they had a lawsuit or something. Sorry, they were banned, and then in 2020, and then I think crypto exchanges, few of the people who were OGs, who were in the field since 2011, 12, they went to Supreme Court, filed the case, and they won the case, and that's how the exchanges were allowed again to operate. I think it was 2019 or 2020, something like that. So that was the journey, and my friends were aware about it because they were like, how do I even buy? There's nothing here. And then, even when the bull market came, I was telling them, go to a Bitcoin only exchange, or, try to buy and then withdraw, like self custody immediately, like, something like that. Because again, even, and then for them as well, I think they had, I don't know. Like they just said, like there's hardly any exchanges who are allowing withdrawals or stuff like that. It was very early in India for them. Like it was just buy and sell. There are a few exchanges in India who were allowing withdrawals, but again, we everyone was not even aware about them and stuff like that. And but yeah, when I see, when I took interest in India market since I think last 1 year, like what's going on in India? Like, in America, there's so much stuff going on. In America, we have publicly listed exchanges, publicly listed mining companies. There are Bitcoin advisors. There's a lot of stuff. Like what's happening in India? And in India, I think that when I started researching, there was no Bitcoin only company who are Bitcoin only, who are trying to just sell Bitcoin, and they allow withdrawals. There's no issues in withdrawing and all, but there are still some exchanges in India where withdrawals are still not allowed, and it's very hard for folks to even withdraw. Like, and a lot of the folks in India as well, when I see, they say themselves like they are crypto investors, but uh, not just Bitcoin. Like a lot of stuff, like other stuff, is also going on here. So it's at a very early stage here, and but I had a chance to meet a lot of the Bitcoiners in India now. I went to a group and joined that group. And there's a show called, I don't know, on Twitter. You even talked with Harshvardhan, right? Like he makes
Yeah.
meme. They are all part of a group called Desi Bitcoin Show, and I just was fortunate. I found them on Twitter, and I joined it, and I met quite a few talented folks there, like who have understood like why we want Bitcoin only. They had their own journey similar to us, and then when I met them, like I talked with them. Now I know there are some companies which are Bitcoin only, but they are at a very early stage. 90% of 99% of India don't even know them yet. So
It's funny, Bitcoin only, like I think the space is really evolving since like the last 3 to 4 years, where Bitcoin only exchanges coming out, VCs even that have Bitcoin only as focus, and they know they don't want any of the cryptos. And you also told me that you have a podcast, or you want to start a podcast that's
yeah,
also about Bitcoin only. Why are you doing that? Like for me, it's always interesting to know that Bitcoiners, even though they usually don't get paid to make content, they still do it. Like they cannot shut up about Bitcoin, and they have sometimes unique reasons. Like why are you so passionate about Bitcoin that you talk about it, that you educate other people about it?
yeah. So I think that's an interesting question. Why Bitcoiners talk non-stop about Bitcoin? Like, what are we gaining here? For me, I think when I started going into the rabbit hole, I was like, I was not asking for like what is Bitcoin? I was asking more like, why Bitcoin? Like, why do I even need this? What's the issue? Like, why do I need Bitcoin in my life? And that's where I went into that rabbit hole, like how our current monetary system works, how our, you know, uh, I was seeing people getting a lot of debts, and like the debts doesn't get over, like it's uh, like initially one person in India can earn and then the whole family was able to survive. Now two people are working, but still, it's not enough. And there are some like huge debts, and it's hard to take that off. And I'm like, okay, then I went into it, like what's happening here. And then literally, I'm an accounting student. I did masters in accounting in US, and I still didn't knew how money works, because frankly, I never studied about it in any curriculum activity. There are quite a few friends who are chartered accountants. That's like CPA in America, so chartered accountants in India. I asked them, like, is that something you guys are aware? Like how money is printed, how the entire system works, how monetary system works, how debt works, how like GDP works, how everything, like how banking work. And it was shocking. Not many were aware about it. And I don't know, that something was not taught to us in curriculum activities in school and colleges, which I'm very upset about. Like, why didn't I knew this 10 years ago? Like, this is something should be taught. Like, and I think that's why we can't stop talking about it, because we saw why Bitcoin is needed. Like, we try to, because again, we can just shut up, hold it, and let the world catch up. We can just relax till then. I think we have that urge to talk about it to other people, and especially our loved ones. Like, hey, you know what? Study it. I don't care. I always say them, I don't care even if you buy even a single dollar or rupees, whatever, right? But please study it. Like, put in at least 10 hours, 20 hours. Read this book, The Bitcoin Standard. At least read that book. And that's my whole part. Like, and I think that's why I think Bitcoiners can't stop talking, because we see why it is so needed, and we see that if if folks don't have, it's like a insurance, right? Like, and if they don't have it, I think it will be uh, it's a worry situation. So,
Yeah, it can be really like, um, I have guests all over the world on, and it's interesting to see a guest from Australia. Last time I had someone from Africa on, and it's interesting to see that there's all over the world the same problem. It's just with different degrees. And I think you would appreciate, because you're in America, where basically they have the world currency right now, but you also have a good connection with India, where I can imagine, even though I never was there, the financial system is quite different to the American one. um, like actually, how different is it? Like, do you what are the differences from the financial aspect? Maybe not even Bitcoin, like from just a pure what's in America possible, what's in India possible, where are the advantages and disadvantages, the financial system. Uh, what do you see as a difference between those huge states?
Yeah, I think for India, I see like it's a developing country, right? Like we got independence in 1947. It's less than like again 80 years, right? Like it's very early stage, and it's a developing country. It's huge potential here in India, and I think India stands at a very strong power right now because world is watching. Like India has the most people who can speak English. Who has good population in young age, so I see India as a huge potential. However, I think when you talk about the monetary issue, I think it's the same, like wherever in every country where there is fiat, right? Like it's the same way it works, same way money printing happens, same way the debts occur, but it's just the difference in the ratio, how fast. And I think India is better in that way. Like it's not going like crazy. If you see the GDP to debt ratio in America, it's 34 trillion debt, 27 GDP. However, in India, it's 4 trillion, I think, GDP, but debt is like still lower than the GDP. It's not like higher. And I think, but one thing which I was always constantly thinking about, like, why is dollar rate, becoming more stronger and stronger against INR? Because INR, I remember when I went, I think, to US in 2015, it was 60, 62, and then now it's 83. For $1, it's 83 rupees. So I think the rupees is getting weaker, and I was thinking, why is this happening? And frankly, if you ask me, I still don't understand why it's happening. Like I have no idea. Like if because I was seeing America since 2020, uh, the M2 money supply chart, the money printing, like almost 60% of US dollars were printed, and in the last 4 years. And I was like, okay, that should cause that's is causing inflation in America. So the currency is devaluing. So INR should be more stronger. But again, INR is becoming weak in some of the other way. And I was also looking at the M2 money supply chart in like India, and I think the trend is similar. Like even in India, the money printing has gone high, but again, uh, it's something I still, frankly, don't understand the foreign exchange, how that works. And I think that was my reason. And when I saw in India, the real estate, like if you see the houses in India, it's crazy expensive. Like in Mumbai, like it's similar to the prices in America. Like like a house in America, like in a suburb area, would be similar to cost in India. Whereas if you see the income ratio, of course, India income is not that high as America. And I was like, and a lot of the people I was talking to, the people who had money, who were investors, who are rich, and in that family, like they were a lot of people are buying homes in India as an investment and store their wealth. India is big on gold. However, like the young population like us and even younger than me, uh, it's a worrisome situation. Like, can we even hope like people can own one home here? And even if you want to own one home, it will still be that you have to go into uh, a debt for 20 years, 15 years, and then you have to pay the interest rate so high, and the interest rate can be increased anytime. Like it's not under your control. Like, so I was worried. Like I was like, wow, like uh, I don't even know if I buy a house, let's say in a interest rate of 8%, that after 10 years it will still be 8%. I don't even know that. Whereas if you see in Bitcoin, like the monetary system is set for the next 100 years. Like we see BlackRock, Fidelity, everybody joined a day before yesterday. But Satoshi in 2009 set the monetary system for the next 100 years. I don't care. The halving gonna happen every 4 years. So even though there is more demand, the supply still gonna cut into half, and that's amazing. Like right, like in the first time in the history, I see if a company is doing well in their stocks, they issue more stocks. They split their stocks. If a builder is doing good in his real estate, he will build more buildings. If a jeweler is doing good in this, he'll try to get more gold and sell. Like everybody matches the demand. But here, The demand is coming. We all see it. Larry Fink on TV today is telling every corporation how strong Bitcoin is. It's an asset which can protect you. But and corporations are listening all over the world. They are slow. A lot of the corporations takes forever to make the decision. So you can't have like a god candle in one day. I think that's if you are into Bitcoin for that, I think you will always lose and you will get out early. I think Bitcoin is about understanding it adoption wise. What's the issue? What again So Larry Fink, I think in 2018, he came out and said Bitcoin is nothing but an index of money laundering. He said that, and there is a news article on that, like it's a money laundering. What changed? What changed in 2020, 2021 when he changed his tone to Bitcoin? What changed? Because I don't think so anything changed in Bitcoin. It was so the question arises in my mind, like what changed here? Why is he talking positive about Bitcoin? This I don't understand. He is the most powerful man in the bank. He's a $9 trillion AUM guy. Like, why is he talking positive about Bitcoin at such an early stage? Uh, and then I realized and I saw what's happening in the bond market in America. Bond market is going minus 30% year to date. And I saw S&P 500 and I saw they are so overvalued, and I saw real estate, it's going over crazy. I think 60% or 50, I might be wrong in the stats, but 50 to 60% of houses in America are investor homes, meaning it's not even the primary resident. So it's already overvalued. And I was thinking, like, what's happening? And then I thought about it. Like, when you are a wealthy person, when you have millions and billions, your only concern is not to make money. Your main concern is to how to save your money, like from devalue. And that's exactly they saw. If we go to the bond market, which is the most safest place on the earth, safest asset on the earth, it's depleting minus 30%. There's so much. I'm not an expert on bonds, but I have heard so many podcasts. I've even listened to Sefidin and Foss Greg podcast. It's called Bond Clips or something. And uh, and then I saw real estate. My friends and family, like friends in America, it's so overvalued. Like it's hard for them to own that house. And then when I saw S&P 500, I saw Apple. It's 3 trillion. That's 80% of India. That's one company. And I'm like, how do I? If I want to make money for my kids, my grandkids, how do I do it? Like, where do I store my wealth and how do I invest? And I think that's what changed for BlackRock. It's not him trying to advertise Bitcoin. It's their clients who's asking for it. It's their clients who's pushing them, give us access, because whatever the clients demand, they have to meet it. If you're a billionaire millionaire clients of BlackRock, you have to meet their demand and say them like, hey, we want access to Bitcoin. You give it to us because we can't take our money and go to Coinbase and buy self custody. Because again, it's not that easy that they can take their money and go to the Coinbase, because we are talking a huge amount here for corporations, for high net worth client. And there's some tax implication where they've already made thousands of percent of profit. So I don't know it's that easy to sell and then go buy, right? So the easiest way is for BlackRock to give them access so that they can move their fund to save, to store in Bitcoin. Again, it has its own limitations, not your keys, not your coin. But again, I just think like that was the issue in America where you're seeing, and that's why Larry Fink is so interested in Bitcoin. Like, because now I always say everyone, Bitcoin do not need Wall Street. Wall Street need Bitcoin, and that's the fact. They need it more than ever. And now, before they were saying it's a scam, it's a money laundering, whatever. Now they are like, no, we want to. And there are few exceptions, like Kathy Wood. There are some folks in Fidelity who were here in Bitcoin since 2013, 2014. But, just a gesture, what changed in
Yes,
America?
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast just got the first ever sponsor. I just started the podcast out like 3 months ago, and now we have 21 Bitcoin as a partner for this podcast. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self custody. This is my go to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. It's interesting because I think a lot of people, oh, now Bitcoin is legitimized because now the Bitcoin ETF is approved, everything is now going on the way. But I think it's the other way around. Like it's not that Bitcoin that it's not like Bitcoin is now coming in this great system. It's the other way around. The big system, the big boys' money, they realize they have to join it. It's like as you said, it's a grassroots movement. The clients wanted it, everybody was asking about it, and they had no choice. If you saw the interview with Gary Gensler, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, where he said, "Oh, Bitcoin is so bad and illicit activities and stuff like that." You clearly could see like there's a lot of theories. Either he's lying, either he actually didn't got it, but he has an MIT class, so I think he understands Bitcoin on some level. But they are forced to do it. No matter what they're doing, they have to come in, and that's
Yeah.
the crazy thing about Bitcoin. It just goes with like a just like with a massive force over the financial system and depletes the financial energy out of real estate, out of everything, every asset that is not as good as a store of value. And that's really interesting to see in real life. And it's an amazing time to be alive, actually. And it shows just the power that also the US and is now coming into that whole scene. Yeah, that's
And even with Gary Gensler, I think it's he understand that, and that's what I was trying to say. Even I think on Twitter we had that exchange that if you listen to his MIT lectures, he understand Bitcoin. Like he understand how disruptive the technology is, how disruptive Bitcoin is. But again, I think it's again we can't comment on what they are thinking. But one thing which I found really weird was if you approved a Bitcoin spot ETF, how can you come on a TV and say we don't support the underlying asset? Like that makes no sense. Like it's like you are allowing somebody to come up with the ETF, but then the underlying asset could be anything. Like it could be if you think about it, it makes zero sense.
yeah,
So
there was one really cool theory in my comments that said, "Oh, he's just closing the door for Ethereum ETFs." Like he's saying now that Bitcoin is already like not good and it's only for illicit activities, and all the altcoins are even worse. So that someone was like, "It's just a 4D chess move. He just wants to close the door for any other ETFs other than Bitcoin." I have no clue if this can even be true, but it was an
I
interesting.
really don't think so that Gary is interested in doing all that. Like he's closing the door, but it's just that after all, he's from government. SEC is a government body. He can't just go and straight say, okay, go buy Bitcoin, stuff like that. Like again, as soon one thing which was clear, as soon as BlackRock filed for the spot ETF in July or June, I was sure that it's approving. Like
Yeah,
there's no way BlackRock, Fidelities, they're gonna join in without that assurance. Because imagine Larry Fink going on a TV and saying Bitcoin is an international asset. Bitcoin is bigger than a gold. It's bigger than a government. He said all the stuff today. Why? He won't because do you think 0.30% AUM fees will make him rich? No. He understands it, like and it's good that he's speaking good about it. I don't know what's his purpose, but I'm one thing I'm sure every corporations out there is listening. It's listening to him, even though they will buy or not, but they're listening. Now it will be very hard for an asset manager to tell you it's a risky asset, it's a scam asset, it's fraud. They won't say that. That narrative is gone now. So it's moved forward now. Some people will still ignore it, some people will still fight it, some people, because again, it's everything against what we have been taught since our childhood. Like, if anything which can have a huge potential and money, in India especially, it's like stay away from it. Like, it's a pyramid scheme. How can you make so much money? Like, there's no way it can go so high. But nobody will understand. Nobody will learn that what's the world asset and how small it is. It's like buying Google, Amazon back in 1995. It's like it's so early. Nobody understands that because Google did 1000x since 1995 to now. Like, why not Bitcoin? Bitcoin is not just a company; it's a bigger asset class. Like, it's so again, it requires proof of work. You have to study. You have to put in your thousands hours, because if you don't put in your 1,000 hours, either you will panic, either you will listen to other society like our media, what countries are doing. Oh, China banned it, America banned it, India banned it. Oh, Jamie Dimon is saying this, Larry Fink is saying this, etc. No, just study the asset. Like, listen, see the developers who are working day and night, and see the people who are contributing, see the miners who are mining all over the world. Uh, and again, so yeah, I just feel like don't focus too much on the media. I hate tweeting, like replying on comments on Twitter, but I have to do it because I feel like somebody has to speak. Like, that's why I try to correct some people. Like, in RBI governor in India, he said, he compared not Bitcoin, but the entire cryptocurrency industry to tulip mania, right? So again, I'm not like, why did you say it or not? It's his choice. Fine, respect it, because it's everybody's has a freedom of speech. But I just went and corrected. Like, I just replied to that post, like, hey, you know what? Tulip mania didn't lasted for more than 3 years. Bitcoin is here for 15 years. And there's a famous quote from Naval, and he said, uh, tulips are not durable, scalable, divisible, easy to transfer, not fungible. So yeah,
Tulips are no money.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
it's in.
it's an interesting little world we live in. It's very early, and I want to start my podcast in Hindi, because if you see in India, there is hardly anybody talking in Hindi and explaining people. Like, I was trying to send like a video to my mom to watch so that she understand what is Bitcoin, like just the basics. And it was so hard for me to find anything in Hindi. And India is a population of 1.3 billion, right? So I'm like, I need to, and then I went to that Desi Bitcoin show, right? And I talked with so many Bitcoiners who have so much knowledge. I'm like, I'm gonna start with you guys. You know what? Like, let's start talking in Hindi. Let's talk, record it, put it out, and even though I don't care if it gets the YouTube or views, anything, for me, it's much more like, if my friends and family ask for it, I can send that. Hey, watch. Because not everybody likes to read the book. And unfortunately, the Bitcoin standard is also not available in Hindi. So I know we are trying hard to get that book in Hindi, but there's no Hindi material like for Bitcoin. And
Yeah, I saw
imagine,
you had, I think, even a conversation on Twitter with Seiferin about it.
yeah, yeah. I did talk with Saifuddin. He replied to my comment. So we didn't talk personally, but he replied to my comment saying that, hey, you know what? You need to find the publisher in India who can, buy the rights from Willie. And then there are some people who can help. And again, it's something I'm thinking with my other Bitcoiner friends as well. Like, what can we do to work that book in Hindi? But again, that's a long process because we have to find writer and all. But it's immediate need. So how do I start? Let's start talking in Hindi. Put the podcast out, spread the word. Because if we don't do that, a lot of the people are won't understand the true value of Bitcoin, and they might get lost in a lot of the other stuff, right? Uh, Even if they come into this sector, like they will be like, okay, Ethereum, okay, let's do Solana, let's do this, that. And again, I'm not saying what is good and what is bad. All I'm saying is my focus is Bitcoin, and I just focus on Bitcoin, and it's very essential to be in this world because again, we don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like what makes Bitcoin different than everything else is Bitcoin is the only network which is truly decentralized. There's no person controlling it. There's no CEO who's coming up with a roadmap. There's nobody changing the protocol from it's a community who has to do it. And that's my whole point. Like even Satoshi, I was thinking about it. What if Satoshi comes back today? Even if he comes back today, all he can do is sell his Bitcoin, which we don't even know he might be doing it. Like he might be still mining because people track the Satoshi era wallets. But what if he never stopped mining? What if he's still mining in 2014, 2015, 2016? He might be using that Bitcoin to survive, to, have a good life. We don't know. He might be still there. What if he comes back? But even if he comes back, there's no way he can. And I talked with the developers friend because I'm not a developer. I've never written a code. So I talked with them and they made me understand like there's no way even he can change anything like the supply or anything. He would have zero influence. Yeah, he can be a spokesperson, like he can guide like where should we approach, but that's all. But again, it's the community. It's too big now. It has spread in the entire world now. So like there's no way one person can control.
It's also interesting because even if he comes back, how would we believe him? Like honestly, I assume he put the keys for the first 1 million Bitcoin away. He was so thoughtful about everything. And I think the first million Bitcoin that he owns, I think the keys he just throw away. I think because it was important for him that those Bitcoin never moves, and this is like cut away from supply. Maybe he was like, let's make a supply of 20 million and I get the first million and that I throw away. And I think even if he comes back, I don't think that first million of Bitcoin will ever move. And that he, even if he comes back, like, how can he prove it with no moving it? And honestly, I don't think he comes back. 15
Yeah.
years, like how can you live with the expectation to come back 15 years in the sun with that asset that just climbs up and conquers the world with knowing you did it. Like you just started it like 1 year, you left really early, and now you like either he's dead, either he is like some kind of nun in some some church somewhere really hidden. I don't know. What's your theory about it?
No, I was talking to my friends the other day, and I was thinking like, and I was telling them Satoshi might be, he has to be a person um, who is big on humanity. Like, there's no way a person who has developed such a big idea don't want any credit. Okay, fine, no credit. He wants to stay private, fine, but not using his wealth. And and in 2 years, I think in after 2 years or 3 years, he just said, "Hey, I'm moving on to the other things. I think Bitcoin is in good hands," and he just left. And he understood that that's the most important part for Bitcoin because if there is a spokesperson, and he came back again once as well. Like there was some issues where somebody was claiming to be Satoshi. He just came back and said, "I am not that. I'm not the Satoshi." And then he disappeared, right? Because that's it. And he just left. And I just feel like that person has to be so strong that the pain in his body, like he had a big pain. Like I don't know. He published the paper right after the recession of 2008, and there are some people who might have that experience, like who have seen their family being poor, or have seen their family being always like working hard but never getting, like it has to be that, like something which is like personal to you. And it's like, and he was following the work since past 20 years, because you see the reference, it goes to past 20 years. He connected the dot. He even reached out to some of the people even before publishing the white paper. Like I heard, like he reached out to Adam Berg in 2008 summers to talk about it, and so it has to be, even if he comes back today, and you imagine like Bitcoin for Satoshi would be the kid, like his kid, like no ways he'll come back and destroy it, and even try to influence in any way. And and as I said, I always think, what if he went away in 2011, but what if he was still mining from other nodes and other, like every other way, like he might be still mining in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. He might still have Bitcoin and he's surviving, like he doesn't even need his, we don't even know like he has 1 million. It's like a number which floats everywhere. Nobody can verify. All we can see is Satoshi era wallets, have they moved? That's it. Like that's the only way. Like the blocks which were initially mined just by Satoshi and Hal Finney. We don't know it. I pray that he's alive. He's seeing this, and he was mining. Maybe he's a miner even today, and he's watching all of us. That he just did so good for all of us. Like it gave us a hope, because when you, and I tell my friends as well, when you truly study Bitcoin, it puts you out of depression. It puts you out of worry that how my future will be, like how will I make money? How will I do this and that? Where should I speculate? Should I put into the stock market? Should I put it into the real estate? What should I do? Like it just solves everything when you truly understand. All you have to do is relax, relax. And of course, as I always tell everyone, the main purpose of Bitcoin, if you read the white paper, the first sentence, it said a peer-to-peer transaction with no trusted third party, financial institution, something. So I tell everyone, self-custody it, like that's the most important part of Bitcoin, because if you have it self-custody, again, it's your power. No, like you can move anywhere in the world. You can be, do good for the society. It's yours. And then also learn how to self custody, because just the self, we saw the fees going very high, right? So you got to learn how to do the UTXO management, meaning don't put small transactions in self custody. Like don't buy $10 and then put it in self custody, because that $10 might be useless, because the fees can go so high that you won't be able to spend that $10. So make sure that it's at least right now, which I've seen on Twitter with the experts, they say 1 million Satoshi. 1 million Satoshi is around like how much? $400, $450? Like whatever rate is Bitcoin, for 42,000. So it's $420. So when you get $420 worth at least, then do one transaction into self custody, just one. Don't put $10, because that can go into dust. Make sure you do one transaction of, let's say you put your money on Coinbase and you are doing $10 a day, okay, or $10 a month, whatever, until it becomes that 450, $500. Keep it there and then move to your self custody in one transaction. I think it's really important to spread that message.
Yeah, it's what are your thoughts actually on more advanced Bitcoin stuff? As you mentioned, UTXO management, CoinJoin, no KYC exchanges, peer to peer, multisig. Like, what's your like? How far and how fast should newbies maybe go in there? I think, especially in the beginning, it can be overwhelming. UTXO management, CoinJoin, KYC. Like most, I think, just start with a full KYC Bitcoin exchange where they get the Bitcoin and keep it on exchange. Then they slowly like learn more and more stuff. Like, what's your thoughts about that?
See, for me, I think I never thought about like KYC, non KYC, because for me, my journey always was like buying from an exchange. I always was a, like, that's how I thought. I never thought about, oh, you know what, we should have non KYC. What if, that happens and all. But again, it has its own perks. But for me, I think, and if you see the folks in India, like 90% of people won't even understand. Like if you talk about like coin join, KYC, non KYC. It's more like buy it. And all I suggest to people is whatever, wherever you're buying it from, just buy it. Make sure when it becomes amount, move it to your self custody and do it in a way, learn. What I am big on is, as a Bitcoiner, when you mature in the journey, like I kept it on exchange. I did self custody it for a while. And then I was like, because I was worried. I was like, no, I'm happy with Coinbase. Like, Coinbase is not going anywhere. It's a publicly listed company. No, it wasn't publicly listed back then. But even though I had trust on Coinbase, like, it's not going anywhere. It's US. The CEO won't do anything. Like, that was my mindset. Then I switched on to Ledger, because that was the only name you heard from always, like in 2019, like everybody's like Ledger, 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 2020s. Then I went into Cold Card and Sparrow, like how to connect Cold Card with Sparrow. And then then I learned about multisig, how to do multisig, and then how to do collaborative multisig. Like there are functions like Unchained, Casa, like there's so much going on. Like, so that's the journey I feel. But I've never thought about other stuff like CoinJoin or KYC, non KYC. What if government does something? I feel having it self custody itself is a powerful thing, because let's say if your government changes their point of view on Bitcoin, then you go to a country where it's supportive, where they support Bitcoin. Like that's how the world will be. Some countries will be against it, some countries will be for it, and you can just, like, I mean, you have the power to move, because if you have real estate, you have gold, you have all that, you don't even have that power. You have to either sell everything and then go, like, you can't take it with you. So I think that's the power. Like today, India is allowing the transactions. They are allowing to buy Bitcoin. There's no regulations, like not like they're not banning anything. So, but what if they change after 10 years, right? So I mean, I don't know. I can't predict. You
Yeah.
can't predict what's gonna happen. So, but if you have self custody, either you can be okay, fine, you banned it, it's fine. I'll just move from to the other country where it's supportive. So it's, and then there will be a competition in the world, like BlackRock. We see in BlackRock today. BlackRock and Fidelity is like spot ETF. Vanguard is like, it's against our values. Fine, cool. We will go to BlackRock and Fidelity if you want to buy, right? Like stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
that's how the countries will work.
yeah, the game theory is amazing, and also that is an actually really underestimated point of Bitcoin, and I think not even a lot of people, not as many people as should be talk about that. You can use a head wallet, go over the any border, and take millions and billions with you. Like try this with gold, try this with real estate, try this with anything else. You can just remember 12 to 24 words in your head and you can walk over a border with millions in your head. I mean, I don't recommend having your Bitcoin only in your head, but you could do that.
Yeah, it's a tool, because imagine, again, let's not even think about like, oh, government might do bad or anything. Okay, I try to be person who thinks about the positive side always. Like I don't worry about stuff. 100 things can go wrong. I can't predict everything, right? But imagine, like what we saw in Russia and Ukraine, right? There was a war, and then when it happened in Ukraine, people who were in Ukraine had to go and become refugee in European country or America. Can they take their assets with them? No, right? It's gone. Their life savings is gone. But if they had Bitcoin access, at least they could start their new life anywhere in the world. All they had to, even if they moved to Europe, America, anywhere, let's say they even forgot the hardware wallet, like even that, if they had that in their mind or written it somewhere, like they could go in the other world and start their life again. Like the people who have worked hard in their life, like imagine the house is gone, like I just feel like, what if I was there and my home and everything is destroyed and I'm going to a new country to start a new life? It's really hard, because I did it. I went to US as a student and I did it, but at least I was not like, I had support. I had money from my family and whatever, right? Like, but I can't imagine going to a country where you have nothing. You have to start from scratch. So Bitcoin solves that, and it's it's a powerful tool where you can self custody. Even if you have KYC, it's fine. You can self custody. Um, you can pay taxes on it, whatever. But I, I don't think so. If you live in a country where there's democracy, I don't think so. They'll be like, you can't take your Bitcoin with you anywhere.
Yeah, it's an amazing
I think
point.
your video is gone. I don't know why.
No, no, I see you still. I think it's fine. Um, Before we close up the conversation with the end routine of the podcast, I have one more question, and it came into my mind. I think Vivek was the one that reposted this, and it was like so many CEOs of big companies like Microsoft, Uber, Google, even in the UK, the mayor of the prime minister of the UK, they are all Indians. Like, why are so many great CEOs Indians? What are the Indians doing so good?
Yeah, I think India. They are, first of all, we all know, right? Like, again, if there are a lot of CEOs, PM, and whatever, like in India, like they are talented. They have the mind. They are willing to work hard, because you don't. Again, it's not just mind or talent. It's hard work. It's the consistency. It's the persistence. Like they are willing to put in that work. You see a lot of the American CEO who are Indians. They left their country to be in India to begin with. They came in there as students. They did their life. They worked hard. They worked in that company. Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, like they worked for so long in Google, Microsoft. Then they became CEO, right? And I just think that if that's the whole thing. Like, and of course, India, like there are so much potential here. It's just that people in India are looking for the right opportunity. And I think this is the decade for India where, a lot of the countries in the world is seeing India. They are moving to India. They are moving their offices to India because, again, there's too much labor, a lot of labor. They speak English. They're smart, talented, and I feel that's the whole thing. Like where you see a lot of the smart Indians, even like PM of UK, Rishi. I don't know him, like I mean, I have not followed him like his, so I can't comment. But I also see Vivek. He is running for president in US. He's a Bitcoiner. I mean, he's not a bit like I mean, he's pro Bitcoin. He holds Bitcoin. I watched one of his podcasts. He speaks really well. It's just that it's I don't know why there is Indians everywhere, but you will see a lot more in a coming decade because India, I think, is just getting started, and that's why I think Bitcoin is so much needed in India. Like we want to because when internet was coming, if you see all the major internet companies is in America, Google, Amazon, Facebook, but a lot of the back end offices and a lot of the again, there are a lot of good companies who are consulting companies in India, and we lost that race for some or the other reason, like where US got the first advantage because they adopted internet too fast, and we were slow, right? Because of various reasons, infrastructures and a lot of stuff. But I think this time, I think if we adopt it faster, because America is already adopting it, even though they can say all kind of bad stuff, like you will see some politicians say, but in the background, everything is happening. Exchanges are publicly listed, mining companies are publicly listed. They have a spot ETF. So pay attention. The world needs to pay attention that America is again taking a lead. And if we don't catch up, again, it's going to be, it will be hard. So I feel very positive that if we, as a Bitcoiners, who can spread the word, who can make people understand uh, why it's important, I think we have a fair chance to be in a better world.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like I was also thinking, yeah, maybe because Indian are so many people, but there are also a lot of Chinese people, and there are not a lot of Chinese CEOs on the like. There's a lot of factors. Since I got an Indian girlfriend, I question also these questions to myself. I'm really impressed with Indians these days. I like it. Moving on to the end routine. Actually, the actual question from the previous guest was about Satoshi's wallet, but we kind of covered that already. So I have another question that just comes from me. Usually, the end routine is the previous guest asked the next guest the question without knowing who's the next guest is, but we covered in the podcast his question. So your question is now, what would you do if there was no Bitcoin right now? What would you invest? Like, what would be the option for you?
That's so hard because, frankly, I get scared just thinking, what if there was no Bitcoin? Like, what if I would have not found it? Because I see so much hope in Bitcoin. There's so much potential, and it's such an early stage. And again, without Bitcoin, I think I would just follow like what 99% of people in India does, like or in America, bought a real estate, like house or gold, and and then trade stocks. I think those were the three. I mean, I always had to speculate, like what's gonna be the best thing, and where do I put my money? How do I move? How do I? But yeah. So without Bitcoin, I think that's the world. And I think with Bitcoin, I'm just at peace. Uh, I just feel like it's not me alone. There are so many people in the world who are Bitcoiners, who are working day and night for Bitcoin and who's protecting the network. There are miners who are protecting. There are node runners who are protecting. There are buyers and sellers who are supporting. Like, it's not me. So, and it's truly decentralized. No person has the authority. I saw it firsthand, heard from so many people. So that gives me that comfort that I'm at a good spot.
It's a scary place where you go when there is no Bitcoin. I fully agree. Where can people find you? Where can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, I am on X. I recently started posting a lot. Like, it's been very recent because I had that urge. Like, I need to spread this word in India, have people talk about it more. And so yeah, it's Study Bitcoin 21 on Twitter. That's my handle. And then I'm also, as I said, I'm coming up with my podcast, Study Bitcoin with Aditya, and I'm gonna link it to my X when it's ready. But it's more like I wanna invite the guest who can speak the local language, and I want to talk about what's going on in India. What are some of the trends? How we are developing? What are the developers doing? What are the miners doing? How India is coming up with their exchanges, wallets. So it will be much more focused, but also what I want to do in that podcast is also just for my audience. If I spread this podcast to my friends and family and or in India, what I want to do with my podcast is teach people what is Bitcoin. Like, you know, who was Satoshi? Like, how did it ever started? Like, what happened in the last 10 years? And I want to talk with those people. Like, I don't want to talk about price or the current market scenario or which country will ban it. Like, I don't care. I care less. I want to talk about why you need Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin, and I think 99% people in India has no idea. I would say 99.99% people in India don't know what is Bitcoin. Even though they might have heard about Bitcoin, but nobody has spent that 100 hours to study it. And because of the language barrier as well, because there's no material in Hindi. I'm not kidding. There's no material. So that's my goal, to make as many people in India Bitcoiner who have studied more than 1,000 hours or 100 hours. Uh, I don't care how many Bitcoin they hold or how many sats they hold. Like, how many hours have you put in? Because if you have studied Bitcoin, I feel like even let's say you don't own any, but you know Bitcoin in and out, you'll be much more valuable in future. Company will hire you. Your career will be much more better than if you don't know about Bitcoin. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a great way to also end the podcast. Thank you, Aditya, that you came onto my show, and I will gladly do this again when you have started your podcast, when everything is up and running in like half a year. Um, Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for inviting. And I saw your other guests and the way you talk with them, the way like I know you started like 2, 3 years ago as well in this journey, and uh, really happy to see that you are spreading that word. And I think we need more Bitcoiners. We need people to understand. And I think you're doing fantastic job. And thanks for inviting me as well. I learned so much today that when I do my podcast, I'll try to be a good listener as you were, because I was talking so much and you didn't interrupt me. Like that's a talent I want to also learn, because as a podcaster, I think uh, you, even though you know 100 things, you've got to listen. So, good job.
Yeah, listening is quite important, and I also had to learn this. It was not easy for me. I like to speak a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.